Family. It's one of the most precious things in life, but it's a tragedy when it gets torn apart. But there is hope, because there is a journey of healing. So today, this is Gene Lakusiak's story, and more importantly, his family's journey through Alzheimer's. So to tell the story, I want to first of all thank the Lakusiaks for opening up your home, Lynn, and Corey and Scott. It's so great to have you here. And representing the Winnipeg Blue Bomber Alumni, I have Noel Dunford and Brendan Rogers. So thank you all. I got to know Gene's story sitting at a dining room table here in less than an hour. And I knew that he is a very, very special man. But now he's battling Alzheimer's. So Lynn, I know it's tough, but what was the first signal that you knew something was wrong with Gene?
Well, I mean, in retrospect, now that I can look back, there were some very early signs many years ago. I think probably even 20 years ago, and it started off as small things like forgetfulness and forgetting his keys and forgetting, his glasses and losing his focus and just. I'll never forget, it was in 2008, and I had been away on a trip for a week. I was on a yoga retreat, and I came home. I was all excited to see him, and he forgot to pick me up at the airport. And I didn't understand. I was just so upset, and I didn't understand at that time. But it was another big clue, and then, and then at first it seemed like his confusion was a little bit slower, gradual. Mm-hmm. And then the last couple of years, I would say maybe even 3 years, it started to escalate. And it was, I don't remember how many years ago, he was a yoga enthusiast and would come to my class. Mm-hmm. And always sit in the back row, and he always said that yoga was the best thing that happened to him because gave him freedom in his shoulders, and it really physically helped him. But it was a Tuesday evening, and he was sitting at the back of the class, and I looked at him, and what I saw in that moment was a vacancy and in his look, and it really rocked me to my core, and I knew that there was something bigger happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, for Corey and Scott, your dad slowly not being your dad anymore, do you have any instances where you thought something could be wrong, Scott?
Yeah, he's the strong silent type, so he gets away, and he has for a long time, with just smiling and nodding and kind of not so much hiding his condition, but making it harder for anybody to notice, because he's never been a man of many words. So he's, but for me, I think it's probably only about 2 to 3 years ago when I would come over here, and him and I would go to the YMCA down the road together. And I was always so proud of the fact that we kind of understand that his brain is deteriorating, mm-hmm. but physically, he's always been very impressive, and even in his age now, and I would go to the Y with him, and I would take him through a series of exercises to help keep him strong. Yeah. And I started to see that he just had difficulty just piecing things together, like how to lift up the weights and how to, and he went to lay down on a bench, and I think that the movement disorientated him, and I kind of saw at that point that, there's something going on that is pretty difficult to deal with.
Right.
But he just keeps smiling and plugging away. It's just he had more and more difficulty, even with the physical things lately too. Mm-hmm. So that's the big change I saw, was it's affecting him physically now, which is quite surprising to me.
Yeah. And maybe the opposite for you, Corey. Do you still see glimpses of Dad, good old Dad?
Oh yeah, he hasn't lost his sense of humor. Like even when we sit around the dining room table with the grandkids, he'll tap them on the shoulder to distract them and like steal their food. So I mean, there's pieces of him that are still there, and certainly the love, the pure nature of love that he is what's rising to the surface now.
Right.
Yeah, so we're really, I know I'm really grateful for him still having that sense of humor and the love, even though it's often masked by the disease.
Right. Well, I'll bring Noel and Brendan in shortly, but this year, no one could expect 2020 to be what it is today. And unfortunately, Gene's condition deteriorated, and you needed to get him into a home. And there was a point where you didn't know where he would go.
Right.
And then a shining light. Yes, if you want to tell us about that.
Well, he apparently it's common with in dementia folks that they have these moments where they actually go unconscious. But we'd never experienced that with Gene. But it was on it was an evening. It was March 27th. Actually, he and I were watching TV, and he just checked out. And we couldn't revive him, we couldn't bring him around. It just looked like he was in the most peaceful sleep. So we had to call the paramedics, and they couldn't revive him either, and they took him to St. B to emergency, and then they kept him in the hospital, but they took him to Seven Oaks, where he ended up spending three and a half weeks until they could deem him medically stable. And then at that point they asked us, do you want him to come home or do you want him to go into long-term care? And his name had gone on to the Riverview list about the middle of January of this year, but our understanding was that there was at least a 1-year waiting list for Riverview. And so we were really in a pickle because it was a really huge decision. But with COVID, we thought if we bring him home, maybe he won't ever get into care, and he obviously needs more care now. So we just hoped for the best and said, no, let's have him go right from the hospital into long-term care. And we were really taking our chances. But a miracle happened, and I don't know how, but the phone rang a few days later, and it was the head woman from Riverview, and she said, we have a place for Gene. And I said, you're kidding, I couldn't believe it. So we were happy about that. And so he landed, he went straight from the hospital to Riverview. So that was March 27th that he was, taken out of the home abruptly like that, and we haven't been able to touch, hold hands, or hug since then. And that is the excruciating part. Riverview is being absolutely amazing with their care and keeping an eye on things, and it's very clean and no COVID over there, luckily.
Yeah.
And so we just have to now wait until we can be together again and hold hands and just try. And he doesn't really understand what's going on, but neither do we, But I feel like he's really landed in the optimal place, and we're really happy about that.
Wow. So, Brandon and Noel, a dear friend of Gene. That's Gene today. Let's go back in time, and Gene on the field playing football with Winnipeg Blue Bombers, with you on the bench, and the glory days.
Yeah. I first met Gene, I guess it was 1967, when he came from Ottawa on a trade, and as his son said, he didn't talk very much, but you could see that he was a great athlete. He played running back first, and then he went to defensive back, a cornerback, which is a very tough position to play, but he was good at both of them. And then, you know, I was there for 2 years, and I think Gene was there for a number of years after. But I always liked him because he really bought into what the coach said, and he bought into Winnipeg, you know, and that's what and he was always helping out where it needed. He coached high school football, and he did a lot of other things that helped the city, and he was big on the city of Winnipeg, and that was really nice, him coming from Ottawa, you know, first from Sarnia, where he was born, I guess, but just a great guy, and somebody you could really count on. And after football was gone, for me and for Gene, we did see each other for lunch often. We had a club kind of, and we said every Tuesday we'd meet. And I could see some decline in that too, and it was, I observed that every Tuesday was a little bit different. But like Scott said, he was always positive. And I really liked the guy, and he was a real good athlete. That's the thing you notice first, because you could see him on the field. But the way he helped in Winnipeg and with our alumni, he was involved with Lynn in the Cycle for Life at Riverview, and he was our best fundraiser, I think, as far as the individual players go. And like I said, that's why he really bought in, and he was always helping, and really now he's helping too with Gene's run. He maybe doesn't recognize it, but just a terrific guy. And I watched the decline in it, but it's still Gene to me.
Oh, yeah. So that's right. So the Cycle of Life is happening September 13th. All things on the go, and the Winnipeg Blue Bomber Alumni are going to dedicate this to Gene's ride. So Brandon, I guess the alumni's connection with Gene and with Riverview and the importance of it.
Yeah, you know, and just to build off of what Noel was saying, you know, Gene's participation in the ride has been nothing short of spectacular. He, year in and year out, he's been the, you know, and the entire family has been, they've been the lead fundraisers for this event, and you know, it goes without saying that the work that goes on at Riverview is quite spectacular. The new facility that's been built at the facility is quite unique to Canada, let alone the world. So, you know, if I could just talk a little bit about Gene. The first time I met Gene was actually, I think, at our old Bomber AGMs, which are always held in the glorious basement of the Pemby Hotel. and again, you know, I'm not a man of many words, but you know, to have a nice chat with him, and you know, we would catch up. We would catch up at usually at the AGMs, and then we started this relationship with Riverview. I guess it'll be probably about 7 or 8 years ago now, and again, year in and year out, Gene would be leading the pack. I even spoke to Gene on another event to try to pull him in on another fundraiser. Unfortunately, it didn't come through. We were gonna go try, you know, climb Kilimanjaro together, but it didn't quite work out. But he's an interesting, very interesting fellow. It's unfortunate that I didn't get to know Gene earlier, but the work that he's done is just really an extension of who he is. You know, hearing the stories about as a teacher and a coach with Tech Bach, and the work that he's done in the community, and being engaged, and you don't have to look too far to see his fingerprints. You look at his family, you look at his children, you look at his grandchildren. They're all engaged and they're all participating, and so it's only fitting that that this year we ride for Gene.
No doubt. And we all know that Riverview is well known for their research with head trauma, with strokes, Alzheimer's and dementia, and head injuries too as well. So I'm going to ask you, Lynn, and it's a personal question, and Brendan, you can give a comment from the CFL League. It's well known that concussion and the repercussions of concussions have been studied, and when Gene was playing, they didn't have a lot of equipment like they do now. Mind you, the guys aren't as big and strong and fast as they are today, but in your mind, and maybe in your opinion, do you feel that had Gene not played football, would he be where he is today?
Well, it's hard for me to speculate Gene not playing football because sports was Gene's
his life.
And he, from a young kid, he was just an exceptional athlete. He was proud to say that he played the sport of the season, and he was top notch in all of them: baseball, hockey, and football. And whatever he played with real focus and intensity. That was just his nature. So I don't think Gene, there wouldn't have been a Gene without this involvement in sports, and particularly football. So when he played, he was known as a hard hitter, and we see pictures of him in the past, and he was always like going in head down and just like, really giving it his all. He would have had head trauma probably all along, because that was just the way he played. He always just put himself on the line. He gave it his all. Yes, if you were to ask Gene, why is this happening now? And we would talk about it, when it was in the early years. Why is this happening now? What's happening with my brain? And he would say, I'm paying the price. I'm paying the price. And there was no doubt in his mind that what was going on with him was anything but head trauma related. And so, and then you would ask him, would you do it over again? And he said, yes, absolutely. I would do it over again.
Yeah.
So, I don't blame the CFL. No. It's just the era that these guys played. I mean, he played university ball, the University of Tulsa down in Oklahoma, hard-hitting ball, and so it's sad, but there wasn't the awareness. There wasn't the awareness that there is now. So yes, the famous story of they get their bell rung and they come off the field and ask how many fingers, and they say 3. Okay, you're good to go back on the field. And they would laugh about that. It was actually a joke, and so they would take it quite lightheartedly. But you can see now that that it took its toll, not only on Gene but on many others. And I know that there are fellows across the league and even here in Winnipeg who are dealing with the same repercussions, all in their own way, I would say.
Yeah. So the alumni too actually supports programs, at the high school level too. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brendan. On proper stages on how to hit, and and doing a lot of proactiveness for head injuries. Now, is this something that obviously you want to get more awareness out on?
Well, I think the body of work that's being done, the CFL is the CFL Alumni Association has they're part of the Charles Tatter study that was being conducted at the University of Toronto. We do have a brain study program in effect. As far as the grassroots level and the alumni support, we not only support those programs through our alumni's participation on the coaching staffs, we also participate through the funding of scholarships and making sure, and again, focusing these these young athletes, these student athletes, on the importance of education. So, are things improving in terms of understanding and having the proper protocols in place? Certainly. I mean, I think that's just the evolution of sport, whether it's football, hockey, lacrosse, rugby. I mean, pick a sport, soccer.
Right.
I mean, you can pick any sport. They're becoming more and more aware of the long-term effects of not necessarily those catastrophic hits. It's those micro concussions, those bumps and bumps and bruises that you get along the way that just have that cumulative effect. I'm quite happy and proud of the work that the alumni have done with amateur sport. We're going to continue to support that. I think when you look at the broad-reaching of effects and ramifications that sport has with society and basically the production of good solid citizens, whether it's female sport or whether it's male sport, you can't replace the lessons that are taught through team sport. If you were to ask me the same question of whether I would change anything, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
I was a multi-sport athlete. I happened to fall into football as that was the sport I was best at and I could take to the highest level, and that's what afforded me my education. But I know that I've had my bumps and bruises along the way, but I don't think I don't think I would. I often joke with my wife. I said, I don't think I'd trade an experience for any of those experiences for $1 million. I don't know if I'd pay a penny for another one, but the cumulative benefits that I receive from sport have provided me guiding principles throughout my life, and I wouldn't trade any of that for the world.
Well, Corey and Scott, listening to all of this, and both of you have children and everything too as well, and I'm sure active. Does this change your mind at all on contact sport for your children or anything like that, or you never even thought of it?
I've definitely thought about it.
Yeah.
And our kids are at the age where they're getting into team sports, and we're just guiding them. Whatever sport they want to play, they can play, but we're just making sure they're informed. Much like we're talking about head trauma being more talked about nowadays than it used to be. We're just making sure the kids are educated, and they're making their own decisions. But I notice our son is gravitating away from contact sports, which is fine by me.
Yeah.
That being said, like Brendan was mentioning with the team sports, that's the invaluable experience from team sports, and we saw that not watching Dad play because we were too young.
Right.
I was 2 years old when he retired from the CFL, but just hearing the stories about Gene being a team player and watching him coach football when he taught at Tech Voc, how the students on the football team really admired him, and to this day they still talk about when he coached them there. So
that's so much pride, and you have to be so
Absolutely.
proud. Corey, actually, I was going to ask you. You had a Father's Day visit with Gene. If you'd like to share it.
Well, it was the best because I got to see my dad. And Riverview has in-person visits that we can go to out in this big wedding tent. And so it was just me this day. And so I was walking towards the tent, and my dad's got the beaming eyes for me, right? And he saw me from inside the tent as I was walking towards the tent. And he got up and he literally started running at me with his arms wide open. And the look on his face was the best. His eyes were bright, big smile, just the best. And he's running at me, and it's my dad. And the nurses were running behind him, you can't touch him. You can't, don't do it. And so when we got close, I had to tell him, Dad, we can't hug. And the look on his face just went from joy to incredible confusion. Here's my daughter. And for me, here's my dad, and we can't even hug. And it broke my heart, you know. It was really hard to then not burst into tears as well. So, you know, we eventually sat down and we had a great visit, and most of our visit was just staring into each other's eyes and saying, I love you, I love you.
Yeah.
And then when the visit was over, you know, like he turns his head now to, you know, to talk to somebody else, and that's his whole world. So at the end of our visit, the nurse came to take him away, and he turned his head to look at the nurse, and he never looked back. And for me, that was my opportunity to just let her rip. So, yeah, and anyway, it's hard. It's extremely hard. I don't even understand this whole COVID thing and the non-touching, and when all I really want to do is give my dad a big squeeze.
Well, hopefully that will come very soon.
I hope so too.
I'm amazed by all of your patience, you know, in the midst of everything. And, you know, you've got your beautiful grandchildren too, so there's a lot in life that you can be thankful for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then just, Noel, now, when you go see Gene, do you just have memories of the old Gene, or are you embracing the new Gene too as well?
Well, I embrace him, the new Gene, because it's still Gene to me.
It is,
you know.
yes, yeah.
And as I look back at some of the experiences, just a couple of playing experiences, just to show you how great an athlete he was. I think the first game that I played with him was at Ottawa, and he was a running back. And we just come off having Leo Lewis as a running back. Leo had quit prior to that, but they called a play that was kind of special for Leo, and I thought, gee, I wonder if Gene can do this. But he was terrific.
Oh. And Lynn, you had a little family visit, a window visit the other day with Gene?
We did,
And
yes.
how did it
Well,
go?
that's how we visit now. We can have a prearranged window visit, and we FaceTime with him every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And the window visit is, it's great to see each other.
Yeah.
We can't really talk, but then I'm coming to recognize that that's not important to Gene. He just wants to see us, and we just want to see him. And we sit and we look at each other and we smile.
Aw.
There's a lot of smiling,
Yeah.
and he still very readily smiles.
And didn't he ask you something the other day? A question about the family?
Oh, the family was leaving. It was the end of the window visit, and he finds it very difficult to find his words now, in particular. There was a long pause, and he looked at me and he said, "Why did they rip our family apart?"
Wow.
So,
So many things. Well, you know what? I really thank all of you for doing this and sharing this. I mean, it's personal. It's getting to remember somebody. And for you, Lynn, I guess final words on other families that might be being torn apart for whatever reasons. What has kind of been your journey, and maybe some hopeful words for healing?
well, I mean, it's on a day-by-day basis. We're still all just trying to find our way through this. And it's very emotional. It's a very emotional thing. And so I think as a family, we've always tried to find the positive in any challenge that has come before us. And you know, we've had our share of challenges, just like any other family. This is kind of a big one for us right now. But it's pulled our family together in a really big way. And we're remembering Gene with lots of love. And we personally, I just try and ride through the really emotional days and try not to focus on, I just try and focus on the positive. And that really helps. That
Oh.
really helps, yeah.
Well, it's whatever you can do to get you through the day, and appreciate that so much. And well, once again, thanks everyone. This one's for you, Jean.